Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We come towards the latter part of the evening with one of the most potent sessions, linking technology towards building sustainable world. RE Hybrid, the game changer. Our moderator for the day, Dr. Rahul Valvalkar, Chair, GESA, President ISA, MD SES. Our panelists, Mr. Shaji John, Head Business Development, Domestic and Global Markets, Renewable Energy Business, Larsen Bro Limited, Mr. Achal Sondi, APAC Market Director, Fluence, and Mr. Anup Bhargava, Executive Director and Head Indo-Pacific Region, Dornier Group, Germany. Rahul, may I please ask you to take the floor from here, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Amit. Welcome everyone for this joint session between REI and India Energy Storage Alliance. We are really glad to partner with REI for this session. Today's session, we are going to focus on energy storage for hybrid renewable energy projects. And as Amit mentioned, we have three prominent experts who will share their practical experiences from around the globe. I would like to start with just providing certain background to set the stage for the three experts in terms of the current policy landscape and outlook for RE plus hybrids in India. And then I will request the three panelists to share their views. And then we will have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to start typing those in the Q&A box. And once the three presentations are over, we will be happy to take a note of those. So to start with, the topic I'm sharing about is driving energy storage and RE hybrids in India. So as you know, apart from being head of India Energy Storage Alliance, I also lead Customized Energy Solutions India operations. Customized Energy Solutions is a global company headquartered in Philadelphia in US. Apart from India, we also have operations in Canada, Tokyo, Mexico, and most recently in Vietnam. We manage more than 10 gigawatt of assets across the grid. So a lot of work which we do is supported by our hands-on experience in working with a number of partners globally. We work with more than 500 clients annually across the complete value chain of the electricity sector. And as an India Energy Storage Alliance, this was an initiative started by Customized Energy Solutions in 2012 to create awareness about energy storage and e-mobility technologies in India. And over the years, this has grown to a very strong alliance with more than 100 participants now. And we also have global strategic partnerships with almost every major energy storage and hydrogen related alliance, and trying to make sure that India can leapfrog and not just become a leader in adopting these technologies, but also become a global hub for R&D and manufacturing by 2022. So the India's energy storage policies have evolved in a big way since 2013. In 2013, Ministry of Power and CEA set up like a first task force for looking at integration of large-scale renewables. This was even before the 100 gigawatt solar target was announced. So that time, government was looking at only around 20 gigawatt of solar, and there were already concerns expressed from various transmission operators for even reaching 20 gigawatt solar. Since then, starting 2014, obviously, we are in a completely different world with government taking very ambitious targets for renewable energy sources, particularly on solar. We have been working very closely with various regulatory agencies such as CERC, MNRE, Niti Aayog, where a series of steps have been taken over last 7 years, and this is all culminating now in a joint mission for a national mission for transformative mobility and energy storage, which is now spearheaded by Niti Aayog. And under this mission, there is also a 50 gigawatt hour advanced cell chemistry manufacturing mission getting launched. So we have come a long way, but at the same time, now we need to focus on getting projects off ground and showing that India can actually take a lead in developing these projects. So now this is the area where there is some debate going on. There is a very strong lobby which feels that India already has invested heavily in thermal storage, thermal assets, and India should just keep on relying on these thermal plants to try to balance renewables. We feel very strongly that that would be a not very useful step, because first of all, we are taking these ambitious renewable targets where right now the target is 175 gigawatt by 2022, and MNRE has upped the target to 450 gigawatt by 2030. These targets are made with certain certain targets on the climate and emissions. Now, if you start using only thermal plants for balancing these, then most of these benefits would actually go away, particularly in area of SOx or NOx emissions, as well as even CO2 emissions can be cut down by almost 20%. On the other hand side, various storage technologies have emerged as a strong contender, and they can provide actually end-to-end clean energy by integrating with renewables. The first objection to this always comes from point of view of costs, that India as a developing country cannot afford such hybrid projects, and we need to focus on cheap electricity sources. So this is a part where we have sort of projected what is a price point for adder for adding 1 to 4 hours of energy storage in the project. And we are considering here that the storage is sized at around 50% of the capacity as compared to the renewable project. And there are a number of factors which you need to consider, including the type of the battery which you are using, or other form of energy storage, how many cycles it would last, would it be deep discharge or shallow discharge? And then ultimately, for getting a blended tariff, you also need to see the balance between sizing of renewables and amount of energy being channelized through storage. But you can see a very steep reduction which is anticipated in the next 5 to 6 years. And these prices, just as the energy storage cost, seems pretty high, and people use these prices to say that India cannot afford it. But actually, if you start looking at hybrid prices in terms of blended prices, then we are looking at already prices which are somewhere around 5 rupees. And we do expect that by 2022, these prices will be below 5 rupees. And going to 2027, we project these prices to get down below 4 rupees. So we think right now some of the objections people have about RE plus storage have gone away. And there is a tremendous experience from around the globe. And I'm sure Achal, Anup and Shaji will share their global experience as well. So you can see clearly that RE plus storage is actually very competent with now any other peak power generation resource in the grid. Now in India, we have started slowly deployment of this. So some of the first projects were done by PGCIL back in 2015-16. Then last year, AES and Fluence with Mitsubishi deployed first 10 megawatt project in Delhi. And then this year now, Shaji and his team have deployed a similar system in Andaman Nicobar as well. And already there are new tariffs which have come up where Renew Power and Greenco have won projects with wind solar storage hybrid worth around 1200 megawatt. So these projects are coming up, and we have a pipeline of more than 20 such RFPs which are expected to get released within next few months. So overall, we are quite optimistic about the sector or the opportunity for energy storage for such RE integration. We do release an annual market overview report which has all the detailed statistics. Also, we have released a detailed white paper to explain the concepts behind this. But there is a big uncertainty in terms of these numbers, and that is primarily because of delays in implementation of these projects. So this is an area where all of us need to work together collectively and work with MNRE, SECI and other tendering authorities to ensure that we are not just making announcements which are 5 years, 7 years in future, but we are actually have maybe 6 months to deploying projects and learn by doing. So to conclude, we are very happy with the overall policy framework improvement which have happened in last 5 years. Energy storage sector is showing similar cost reduction curve as demonstrated by wind and solar. It is in fact faster than the cost reduction curve demonstrated by wind. There are options of even integrating traditional technologies like pumped hydro, but there are still significant environmental concerns which needs to be addressed. Electrochemical batteries, including range of chemistries, are now viable. And also there are alternate technologies such as thermal and gravity storage which are being tried out. And cost reduction is not going to happen just because someone produces cheaper batteries. There is almost around 30 to 40% of the cost is for rest of the system as well as for implementation. So unless we start implementing these projects and gain experience on that, we cannot truly become a leader on providing cost-effective hybrid solutions. So this is the area where we are really excited that all the global leaders are very serious about India market. And I hope that with these markets taking off, all of us together can make India not just a global market, but also a global hub for R&D and manufacturing for these systems by 2022. In this regard, I would just like to give a small plug. On 22nd September, we are hosting a global event in partnership with 20 other international alliances called World Energy Storage Day Virtual Global Conference. This event will be free to attend. So if you are interested, please do visit the website energystorageday.org and feel free to join us. And also, we will be hosting a 5-day dedicated event on the energy storage and e-mobility, covering all the details of right from manufacturing to R&D to investment over a week as part of India Energy Storage Week in November. So I hope all of you will also participate as for that. I hope I was able to provide you a quick overview, and I'll be happy to take up any questions after all the three experts share their views. So with this, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mr. Anup Bhargava, to join and share his insights on the European market as well as technology outlook.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul. It was very great to give you an overview of what's happening in India and what's happening in a part of the world. So let me add on to your presentation, and I'd like to share our experiences, which combine with our international experience in Europe primarily. So let me start the presentation. So this presentation is, I'm representing Dornier Group. Dornier Group is a German-based group where we have 7 companies, from energy to infrastructure, engineering and consulting. The specialization of grid, electricity, generation, transmission is all done by VPC. We have a team which specializes in design of grids, electrical system generation, both from coal to oil and gas, and renewable, and then program and project management. So I'm representing VPC here. So today I will run you through where some simple things, how we build up the whole perspective of adding hybrid solutions. So this is already, Rahul has already said, but just to add that we are going to have a lot of capacity addition of battery storage in India from up to 2030. And this is in general how the India planners are planning to develop the entire utility, wherein we can see 34 gigawatts of battery to be added. And there is substantial amount of renewable to be added, which is which we need to have both solar and wind in this case. And the gas and nuclear may not be sufficient for any backup of the peaking applications. We have to use in future battery storage systems. So just to give you an overview of what's energy storage of today is, if you can see, climate change and other environmental concerns have put the government to look for newer ways for provide cleaner source of energy. Wind and solar have over the past decade proven to be the cheapest and readily scalable clean power source. However, intermittency of wind and solar have required grids to provide a balancing mechanism. So energy storage, implementation time, response time, excellent round trip efficiency of more than 90%, and ease of connection has provided natural balancing mechanism for solar and wind. The cost and production limitation of energy storage systems have limited large-scale installation till today. But since this is the most efficient and effective way to use the capabilities is for grid level balancing and support. So the whole idea of hybrid system is to give more support to the grid and balancing. What's the need for a hybrid generation? So hybrid generation would be defined as solar and or with balancing mechanism, because they are intermittent. State grid potential plan is always to have a variable power from solar, wind, biomass, hydro, and wind to maximize the clean energy. Stable power source comes from gas, nuclear, waste to energy, and energy storage. The backup stable power, which continues to be in diesel and coal, will get reduced on a year-to-year basis. The main source, however, the cheapest source, will continue to be solar and wind in India and globally. The balancing mechanism is to have decentralized balancing mechanism. It's not centralized. It's not 24-hour RTC. It has to be in a different level. This is our experience of Germany and European grid integration. Across Europe, across remote grid, LV, MV, and HV network is where we need to do balancing. Reduce risk in case of failure. When we do balancing at decentralized level, it reduces the risk of failure, whether it's technical or natural disaster. The various sources, variable sources, waste to energy, hydro, biomass, nuclear, etc. Energy storage can provide backup, balancing, etc. across all network. So the energy storage, primarily based on lithium-ion batteries, will provide all these things. Energy storage can be in power plants, substations. In Germany, we have energy battery storage system installed in power plants, substations, and use. Given the balancing is the most efficient at grid level, we don't feel there is need for any 24-hour renewable energy plants. So if you see, lithium-ion energy storage is most prevalent for backup or emergency storage or hybrid applications. So you can see right from generation to transmission to distribution. And even when there is an end of business life of a battery, we can still use it for peak shaving, transmission upgrade, difference, large short-term energy trading, intraday load leveling. So all these applications, even at the end of the life, we can use it. For faster adoption of lithium-ion storage, we feel like the grid challenges in future India. What we perceive is intermittency of renewable energy power, EV chargers, bus, car, etc., including future superchargers. What we are talking about is, let's have 1 megawatt in less than 10 minutes. How are you going to do it? So it requires a lot of intermittent power. Higher domestic demand, because it is going to increase, because the capacity to own a lot of electrical equipments or air conditioning loads will increase. Electrification reach over the years in India has tremendously increased from remote villages and smaller towns. Thermal power plant and pump storage produce far from remote places. Please understand, it's a lot of distance between them and then. So when we decentralize grid at a different level, then we don't need so long transmission line, and the thermal power or pump storage, which is far away from the demand, will become less effective. The grid requires balancing. 400 kV lines cannot go to remote places in small town. It is not profitable. Pump storage will not have the response time and regional flexibility as energy storage for EV balancing. Battery storage has the ability to solve most grid problems. Even the maintenance of part. You can change a cell or a module at any level of the battery storage system or even solar plant. But just imagine if a pump failed, the entire power plant, pump or thermal power plant can fail. So this policy framework, I think Mr. Rahul has already had. So from Germany's perspective, Germany is working as an energy island in the European grid system. So the component of energy island is basically energy storage, nuclear, pump storage, hydro, waste to energy, biomass, wind, geothermal, and solar. But you will be surprised to know when I asked the question from the German expert, they said there is no gas and coal because in future, they are not going to be cost effective. There will be a lot of waste to energy from agriculture waste and other waste, biomass. And so this is where the new energy island looks like. We took a snapshot at 9:20 a.m. German time, which is roughly around 1 o'clock India time. This is where the whole energy mix looks like. So if you see 46.4% of the energy is non-renewable and remaining 53.6 at 9:20 a.m. today morning in Germany was renewable energy. And this is how it comes from hydro, biomass, wind, solar. So you can see this is where the whole islanding concept comes from. So what are the design parameters of energy island? The use of wind and solar production only by approximately 60%, supply energy to be fed to the grid. The main task of the battery in the electricity supply system should be only to decouple daily energy production from the demand. So we are decoupling energy and demand using battery. The task is the determining factor for sizing the battery system. Therefore, it drives the battery capacity to around 40% of the average daily demand. So intraday arbitrage is limited as per the law to up to 40% of the demand. And that's how the whole system of hybrid system is designed there. The thermal power plant will work only as a range extender for the battery in order to bridge the gaps in renewable energy generation. So I can just show you how the whole thing looks like. If you see the yearly distribution of Germany as an island within the European grid, 60% of the solar and wind generation can be used. If you see up to 60%, there is a blue line. And then you can see the yellow ones are the solar and the green ones are the wind. And if you see the next slide, so the circles are the ones where we use the main thermal plants or the gas plants or the main plants, and above 60% load is where we use the battery system for storage applications. So if you see the current trends in the grid complications, we are talking about Project 2X coming up. We are talking about grid boosters. We're talking about reactive power playing a major role in Germany grid system. If you see, we are talking about 127 to 248, or I mean, each component, if you see the gigawatt hours will be 74 gigawatt war, GWAR. So it's a very huge reactive power which we have to balance in the grid. So this is where our whole recommendations are. I mean, on O&M perspective, we have a company called VPC, which has been managing Eastern European grids, designing and managing the grids. And then we are also enrolled with World Bank and KfW and all these for any scaling solar program or any hybrid systems or any of these. So that's what I have for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anup. Quite interesting presentation, and thank you for sharing the insights about the energy island. I'm pretty sure you'll have many more questions on that coming forward. So, Achal, do you want to go next? Achal, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the button. Thanks, Rahul. Appreciate the introduction. And that was really interesting from both of you and Anup. You know, I appreciate the time, but I think I'm just going to build on both your presentations. I think we're all speaking the same language, which is exciting. I think a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, everyone would only say, oh, storage is just too expensive. Let's not even discuss this. But you know, now we're seeing that everyone realizes it's a fundamental need. So that excites me for sure. So as Rahul introduced, my name's Achal. I work for Fluence. Let's get the marketing out of the way. So some of you have already seen this slide. Fluence is a 50-50 JV of Siemens and AES. We are a storage solution provider operating currently in 22 countries and hopefully adding to that in the near term. And as of now, we've just crossed 2 gigawatts of installed or deployed solutions globally of capacity. Just, you know, most of I think the attendees here have seen a lot of the projects we've worked around the globe. I can talk to this more on the panel. And you know, I don't want to go over the different applications. We've all seen this and heard this before. So just to give a quick summary of the kind of the work we've done. Obviously, the earlier projects we've done were in the 5 to 10 megawatt. Then so you can see the 100 to 400 megawatt range. And now we're seeing much larger projects that are more critical to the grid coming up, which hopefully we can publicly announce soon. So, you know, things are moving fast and around the world. And we kind of what I wanted to highlight instead of talking about applications today was how they're moving and how kind of the adoption has happened in other countries. And, you know, how can that be speared in India? Before that, instead of talking through applications, I thought I would just guide everyone to where, you know, we believe we still like to put out white papers on certain applications. We just released 2 new ones. One, the virtual dam paper, kind of an easy way to create capacity on the grid with run-of-river hydro. We've been doing this. We're evaluating such certain projects around the world like this. So we find that quite interesting for a lot of our customers. Secondly, we've got a second version of our virtual transmission white paper. Please feel free to download and review, ask any questions if you have. To Anoop's point, the grid booster is highlighted in this as well, something we've been watching for a long time. And I think that's, it just shows how important virtual transmission has become in the world. So with that, kind of the topic I wanted to discuss today really briefly in the time I have was, as I said, there was a time when we wouldn't talk about battery storage, and that was just 24 months ago. We would think it's just too expensive and this gold-plated, equipment that we would never be able to achieve. Today, it's identified, and as Rahul and Anoop already, mentioned, it's just much needed, and there's no other solution right at the moment that is at a commercial scale or commercial price to deploy. So the need is very clear. Secondly, we know that tenders happened. We've had a few pilots. We have enough players, as Rahul said, internationally and locally, that are building up capacity to deliver on the industry. And storage is proven in other countries, be it OECD countries or non-OECD countries. So it's not like a high price solution. But we're still not seeing that scale of projects take off the way one would hope to see, or we are seeing in other countries. And so the question comes up is our adoption rate low? What is really stopping our adoption rate? And so this is just kind of a general kind of view of adoption, be it in the car industry, phone industry, any new technology, even solar maybe 10 years ago. Obviously, we're past the innovation stage. We have some early adopters and people who are front running India in terms of how we build up capacity. We've had a successful tender, but for some reason, we're not getting onto that scale of, building up that majority of projects. What I do want to highlight is, I think what we're doing is amazing, and Rahul alluded to it, is we are preparing for domestic industry growth, and we're going to have capacity in the country, and we must. Otherwise, we're not going to reach the scale that we need to. But that's a few years away, maybe even a year away. But before that, we still have a lot of work to do, and we can do it right. So what we've seen, and we're looking at 4 new countries to enter this year. All these 4 countries have some of these parameters. They've moved from the early adopter pilot stage to early majority stage in a span of 12 to 14 months. And as you saw on a slide earlier, we've had pilots since 2015, 2016. So something is a bit slower here. So I just highlighted a few things. So, what I've seen in a few other countries is if they've had a successful tender, let's say they had a successful tender in Feb or March, by June, July, they've launched 2 more tenders exactly the same. They've just said, let's go for it. Once the first tender gets through the hiccups, we can apply that to the new tenders as they're moving through the process. Secondly, that'll show real potential. So then you'll have people saying, okay, I'm ready to move domestic manufacturing to India. I can see the market is moving. Because right now, it looked like the market was moving 2 years ago. Now it's not moving yet, so people are being a bit slower. But we want them to realize, let's localize here, let's focus on India, and let's give everything we can, because it is going to be the biggest market. Secondly, you need to, I know we want to build up domestic capacity, and we must, but there is a way to do that. And there's leveraging the success of other markets, and there's also learning from failures of other markets. So definitely would want to leverage technology and kind of capabilities from international players, and then build out the capacity. Secondly, you also want to learn from failures. You don't want to repeat mistakes done and damage the industry. So if we have poor integration, not the right standards for safety, you are risking what might happen in Korea, which dented the industry for a little while because things were not set up properly. Third, we've seen people just set up a target. Maybe it's application specific, maybe it's countrywide, but they've just said, we're going to plan for X megawatts of storage for this application by 2024. And that, it signals to the market, figure out a commercial structure, the government will help push that through. We're committed to it. And so the private sector, which most of us are here on this call, can really start maneuvering the market in the way they need to. And this would, they would create commercial structures that would actually help adopt storage quicker and get around the boundaries that people say, oh, there's no PPA for storage. And finally, as I said, you have to ensure adequate standards, but do not overcomplicate it. Do not say that we need the moon when actually we just need simple standards, which have been proven and used in other markets. So finally, just, like to paint that picture, if we don't do move fast, and I think Anup already touched on this, what could happen to a grid, you won't be able to support the flexibility we need. It's absolutely needed. We'll start, you would eventually cause an increase to the system cost with the idea that, oh, I'm going to wait for storage to go down in price, otherwise it's going to be too expensive. But you might be causing an effect which will cause the system to be more expensive. There are two ways. One, either you're going to have curtailment, which is again a loss to the system, or two, you're going to have to deploy assets that create flexibility at a last minute. So very high heat rate, gas projects, and expensive gas that you might have to deploy, or you may have to deploy diesel gensets, which again are not carbon free, or you might have to say, I'm going to build a lot of transmission, which may not be fully utilized. And so therefore you're increasing the cost of the system and underutilizing all this heavy CapEx. So if we don't move fast, we're going to continue this chicken and egg situation. And I think it's worth it to realize that there will maybe be a slight premium now. There may be some learning, but that's how we spur the storage industry. And I think that's from at least so far the discussions I've heard, definitely in the last 6 months, we've seen that there's a keen inclination to do so. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up my few minutes I had, and thank you.
Yeah, perfect, Achal. Thank you very much for a very compact yet sort of a broad presentation, sharing your insights and also sort of the bigger learnings which can really help India move forward. One of the things from IESA we are trying to do it is no longer just count on these government tenders, but actually try to also channelize demand on the private side. Because as I showed on my slides that especially for rooftop solar plus storage, now prices are actually much lower than the prices what commercial and industrial customers are paying just on a regular DISCOM tariff. So we do feel that a lot of like campus microgrids or other even standalone projects for C&I customers can take off. And in this regard, again, Shaji, they had taken leadership. In fact, they did a campus microgrid for L&T office in Chennai way back. I think maybe it was 4 years back. And they have also been involved with a number of similar projects. So Shaji, I would hand it over to you for sharing L&T's experience on renewables.
You're on mute, Mr. Shaji. You need to unmute yourself. You'll see it. Yeah.
Is it screen visible? Sorry.
Yeah, Shaji, we can see it now. And we can also hear you. Go ahead.
Is it a full screen or?
No, right now it is not full screen. Yeah, you can try to go in a full screen again.
Sorry for that. I hope it is.
No issues. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Rahul, and it is really heartening to see and hear from all of you, and that it is a very positive for the battery segment. We are going to see more and more battery getting adopted in future, but obviously there are some policy and technical challenges which we need to overcome. So my presentation will not be something new because most of the topics have been already covered by all of you, my speakers prior to me. But I will try to see that what unique I can share with all of you. So like you heard from Rahul also that we have adopted in our own campus something called as urban microgrid. And we strongly believe that the world is finally going to be on urban or rural microgrid in any form. It is called smart microgrid in our words. So we are probably going to see this transition over a period of next 15 or 20 years. But as a country, we have taken the first step in terms of adopting wind and solar. So that was the first baby step towards that ultimate aim of moving towards smart microgrids. So between this stage of pure solar or wind to the smart microgrid, we will have certain milestone, and one of the milestone is adopting energy storage and going for a hybrids, which is a combination of wind, solar, and energy storage. So we are today in the mid of that transition from the pure play solar and wind to smart microgrid situation. So that is what I would like to share, that on which basis L&T and many of us are working towards it. So what we have seen today is adoption of in our country today, 9% of our share is renewables. From, if you see the energy mix of the country, 9% is coming from renewables, and within that 9% of renewables, solar is almost like 50%. That is a mid one chart which you are seeing. 47% is solar renewable basket. And what we are going to see in the coming days, by 2030, it is expected that the solar PV itself will be almost like 30% of the country's installed capacity, 1/3. So that is how we are going to see the progress in which solar is going to catch up in the market. But one of the issues which solar carries is that it is having a low CUF or PLF, whichever terminology you want to use. That becomes a big hurdle. That how increase this PLF. So in early days when we started in 2008, the only tool was available increasing the DC-AC ratio, which was near 1, and from 1 we increased it to 1.1, 1.2, and today I'm happy to share that some of the projects we are doing even 1.5 or 1.6. That is one way of increasing the CUF from the base CUF of 15-16%. Then we started seeing the adoption of trackers, basically, because it increases the PLF by another 14% from the base. And today what most of us are seeing in the market is adoption of wind and solar and battery together. So this can take the CUF or PLF to almost like 35-40%. This is a good signal, because you cannot have intermittent power all the time feeding the load which is constant. You and me always consume load which is constant, but the power by solar or wind is not very firm or base type. So by doing this hybridization of solar, wind, and energy storage, we are actually taking these technologies to a level where it can give at least some level of steady and firm power. In between, we are seeing one more technology which is adding up this CUF is the bifacial technology. India is yet to see it in a mass scale adoption, but what we are experiencing in Middle East and other markets, bifacial is catching up very fast. It is nothing but a module which can generate from the top as well as from the bottom. So from the bottom, the reflection from the ground gives more energy back on the backside surface, and it can generate more. So around anywhere between 10-15% gain we can expect based on how is the ground situation of the site. So these are certain technologies which are taking the PLF from 18% to 35, 40, or even 50% we can expect in the coming days. So this, I just wanted to touch upon the trends, and like I told, the most important part of this is batteries. And from 2019, where we are seeing a very low adoption of battery, by 2035 we will see that substantial amount of battery would have come onto the grids. We are expecting a huge amount of investment flowing into battery related technologies. And the major reason for that is obviously the declining price of the batteries, especially the lithium-ion batteries. This is going to drive the demand up, the lowering battery prices. And these prices are coming down basically because of, again, high level of adoption for the energy storage, especially in the EV market. As you all know that the EV is catching up. So our conventional IC engine vehicles are getting converted to EV very fast in some of the countries, which needs a lot of these batteries. And more battery gets produced, and the volume increases, the cost goes down. And these lowered prices of batteries are something which is going to help us in the grid scale play. That means for the power sector, it is going to be an advantage when you see more and more battery cost going down. If you see, there are huge amount of potential across the countries. Speaking specific to India, if you see that almost like 6 states have a potential of over 1,000 gigawatt. So this is what is something which we need to tap. And some of other states are also having 100 gigawatt or 100,000 gigawatts, which means that the potential is tremendous across the country to adopt this upcoming mix of solar, wind, and battery kind of projects. And India government has come up with a policy specific to hybrid, which is almost like 10 gigawatt. And followed to that, Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh has also declared some policies, and we have started seeing the tenders flowing in. The role of battery will be two in this hybrid kind of situation. One is the energy shift, which means that whenever there is excess power from wind or solar, it can be captured and stored it in the storage and then release it whenever it is required. So in this chart, you can see that red shaded one is the excess power, which was taken and stored in the batteries. And during the required period when the solar or wind was low, that was dispatched through this battery. So that is the green part. So that is what is called as energy shift. So morning you have sun, so store it. Evening you don't have sun, release it. We have a very good experience of this technology in a few of the projects which we did on a village electrification, where we have stored the solar in the daytime and released it to the consumers in the night as well as early morning. So that is the one of the use of the battery, which becomes very prominent for hybrid type of technologies. Another one is renewable smoothing. That means if you all know that solar or wind are not consistent over a period of time, but even for momentary, there are fluctuations. Just because of the clouds or because of sand on the sky, you can suddenly see a dip in the solar power, and hence smoothing of renewables become a challenging task, and battery plays a vital role in smoothing of the power from solar or wind. The economics, some of you have already spoken. We will start seeing the tariff coming down. Today it is 6 to 7 rupees, but very soon we will see that the tariff may come down to 4 rupees or so, which may be still better than many of the other generating technologies. So that is the economics. The technology of future, if you see already the commercialized one is the lithium ion and redox flow and sodium sulfur, etc. They are already commercialized. And matured ones are like flywheels and pumped hydro, which is already in some of the part of the country it is operating. But the upcoming ones are interesting really, especially the hydrogen base is very, very promising. And I have started seeing some projects in Middle East and Africa in a very large scale. The hydrogen is going to be the next step towards decarbonization. So that is something which is very interesting to see. This is something which we have done in our Andaman project, that these are all containerized battery storage. 16 megawatt and 8 megawatt hour was the project which we executed in Andaman. This is basically to energize the entire island, which is having very few clean sources. It was purely driven by diesel sets. So government wanted to remove those diesel sets and bring clean power, and hence the solar adoption of solar. And being an island, we all know that the fluctuations could be high because cloud movements are very high, and hence the adoption of the batteries. Though the government was pushing for bigger amount of battery capacity, because of budget constraint, it was brought down to a smaller capacity, at least to take care of the fluctuations, so that it is not destabilizing the entire grid of the island. So this is one interesting project which we did. It has several learnings out of it. Maybe when you will ask questions, we can handle it. Another big project which we are currently doing is a 37 megawatt hour in Thailand. Again, applications are almost similar of smoothing, but at least it has a 1 hour of storage to take care of it. Is a much better way than Andaman project. What we have done as an engineering and construction company is that how to make the life easier at site in construction, to make it a more plug and play kind of solution. What we have done is that we have created this facility in Kanchipuram where the entire containers are assembled. The whole components required for the BESS system is assembled inside this container. It is shipped to the site so that you have a limited amount of work at the site, and it is commissioned on a plug and play basis on a very fast manner. So this is the view of the containerized factory, which we are having it in south of India. A lot of opportunities are there right now. As you know that some of the tenders have already got awarded to ReNew and Adani, etc., almost like 1,500 megawatt. But more are already tendered out, and we expect that total of around 3,200 megawatt will be up and running in next 18 to 24 months. We will see a lot of traction in it. Some of the policy points which we already discussed, maybe in our talks we can take it up. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ajit. This is really exciting to see all these sort of capabilities getting developed in-house and right here in India, because you're absolutely right that there are a lot of things where we need to, if we have to meet sort of the expected demand, then we cannot keep on doing it at a one project at a time. So I think a lot of these capabilities, which I think companies like Fluence or Dornier others have developed in past, I think it's really good to see L&T taking a lead on developing similar capabilities. So maybe I'll start with the first round of questions. In the meantime, if any of the audience members, if you have any questions, then please type it in so that we can also take your questions for the panelists. So Anup, in your presentation, you talked about the energy island concept. So can you share any more insight? Like, is it something like a project is being built right now? Because I've seen some similar presentations around 10 years back where there was actually a concept of artificial island with wind turbines on the periphery and then using storage and other component, also trying to combine it with maybe some kind of a tidal energy and others. So are you talking about like moving that project to a reality, or is it more about energy island could be a grid connected or a off-grid island, more from the concept point of view? If you can share more thoughts, that would be interesting.
If you see the energy island, Germany is working as an energy island for European grid. So that is the concept. And now the paper presentation which I presented was...
Anup, I'm getting disturbance on your voice right now. I don't know if others are also having, or is it only me?
Yeah, it's a voice disturbance is there.
Okay.
Is it clear now?
No.
No? Just give me 1 minute.
Sure.
So maybe in the meantime, Rahul, can I share something?
Sure, go ahead.
Lines?
Yeah.
So apart from what we have seen in a small way, what Andaman as an island we have seen, right now I have seen 2 of the projects in Middle East, 2 big cities on the same concept. It's an island concept where we no connection with the national grid. It is an independent city which has to have its own source of power, which is wind, solar, in rare cases biodiesel or biofuel, and then battery storage. So this is an independent grid by itself, and this is going to be probably the norm of the day in the coming days, that standalone systems purely energized by renewable power.
Okay. That would be exciting. Anup, yeah, can you try again?
I'm back. I just still I think
there is a disturbance. Looks like maybe there is some feedback or something. Your voice is breaking up.
Anup, is this the network? Could it be the network?
Yeah, it's the network.
Or maybe just try switching off the video and see if that works.
Is it clear?
No.
No, Anup, I would suggest that if you could log in once again. If you can log in quickly, yeah?
Yeah. Sorry, Anup. Yeah. So, Achal, maybe can you share, because I know that even Fluence and AES, they have looked at some of these concepts. And one of the things which as a customized energy solutions we have worked on in US as well as we have tried to do it in India is looking at sort of a grid connected microgrids, because yes, ultimately there would be some certain cases, some large customers where a complete grid disconnected microgrids can work. And in fact, in India, we already have many customers who have such microgrids based on either coal power plants, captive power plants.
Platform pe.
Hello.
Platform pe feed nahi.
Sorry. Yeah, others technical team, maybe you can be on mute. Maybe yes. So sorry, Achal. So there are certain large customers, CNI customers, who have these type of right now fossil fuel powered microgrids, but moving towards it would be an option. But other option which we had looked at is maybe something like a ACZ or a similar network where it may be connected to grid, but then you look at distributed renewables and storage for a way for optimizing it within the grid, so that you can actually work with some of the less space availability or other issues. So has Fluence done similar work internationally, and do you have any learnings for India?
Yeah, so we definitely evaluated several cases like that. And I mean, especially if you look at Asia, of course, Southeast Asia in particular, Indonesia, Philippines, majority of islands, this is a hot concept. And the reason this becomes a low-hanging fruit and one of the first places to look is the concept is very valuable because you're paying diesel at very high cost. So to offset that diesel with solar was one case we all looked at in 2014, 2013 and said this makes sense. And now today at the prices we are, it makes sense to use storage as well and kind of displace more diesel, which is in favor of the environment and because of the cost. So we have seen it. The one thing we've definitely faced though is each of the projects that you come across in maybe islands in Indonesia or islands in Philippines are very small. So the soft costs associated with doing them kind of may make it a little tougher, but it's a very viable concept. So we've evaluated a few projects. We're continuing to look at them. Where we've seen actually more traction has been with some of the large mining facilities. And that's because some of the corporates in the mining facilities are able to be creditworthy. They have money to spend, and they're willing to make that investment quite quickly and deploy capital to put these projects to work. So when you go through a regulator for an island grid, there's a little more complications and time there. But versus when you work with mining facilities, they can move quicker, the decision-making process is quicker, and they see basically the numbers. So I think from an India perspective, there are two things. One is remote villages. Obviously, we'll see this. If they're not connected or only connected by one line with no contingency, that is somewhere where you need to focus, that you can provide the solution. Number two is any sort of mining facility, and as there are expansions on different mining facilities around India, be it on different commodities. Those would be the aspects as before someone makes an installation of, I'm going to buy 5 diesel gen sets. Maybe you can find a way before they do that purchase, you're able to say, look, put solar, diesel, and maybe you don't need 5, you get 2 and put in the storage. Because there is a balance you have to do between having rotating mass to keep grid forming. So you may have to decide how many diesels you replace with battery. But in general, I would say that's for India, the low-hanging fruit to look into, especially because we're seeing that sector still expand. There is a push still to expand the coal sector in India too. And so even with that side, if there's anything we can displace in terms of what pollution is coming out of that mining, using storage will help displace more of it. So that, in our opinion, that's where to focus for India. And of course, rural electrification. Again, there are hurdles there with policy, but the price points have been working out to be attractive.
Great. So Anup, do you want to try again? Yeah, now it's clear. Go ahead.
Is it clear? Yeah, I think I log in again and it was very clear. So what I was talking about is Germany is working as energy island within the European grid system. So whatever I was presenting is actually in force. Is like many engineering companies like us, technology companies like us are contributing to this energy island by putting some innovative ways in which we are doing, which I just summarized some of them. And it's a very good concept. In India, if you see, we are chasing RTC power. System effectively. It is not like we have to use battery all the time, like even Mr. Achal has said, that instead of buying 5 diesel generators, just buy 2 and see how a battery can be effectively done. If the cost of diesel itself, if you take the cost of battery storage, including the conversion, which is like round trip of 90% or above, this is very economically viable. You can see the return in 2 years or 3 years. So the way you look at hybrid system at a utility scale, so it has to be at a distributed level, where at a substation level, at a power station level, or even smaller ones like Achal has said that we should have mini and microgrid systems, which is very, very effective because you can't even send the diesel fuel oil there in remote places, correct? So very, very effective grids. We are working on some pilot projects in India now. We have started, wherein we have a biomass plant and a mini grid system attached with a solar and battery. And it becomes a very vibrating thing because we have seen it is even commercially viable. Of course, there will be some short time, early stage grants required to develop those engineering solutions, but definitely we can do it. Oh, you are on mute, Mr. Rahul.
You're on mute, Rahul.
Yeah. So a couple of follow-up questions. So I think we have clearly talked about sort of two cases where it makes a lot of sense in terms of especially the diesel minimization, which could be in terms of islands or which could be for commercial industrial customers or customers like mines where it can clearly make a business case. But at the same time, I think there are a large number of other commercial industrial customers who are connected to the grid. But the way India's tariff policy works, where actually commercial customers end up paying the highest tariff, we are seeing number of cases because as a CES, we are also have an energy trading arm, and we do work with number of large multinational companies to help them optimize their energy costs. So we are seeing that because of the existing tariff inefficiencies, there are these commercial customers who are paying more than 10 or 12 rupees as a tariff for landed power. And if you can have a distributed such hybrid systems where even if it is prices at 8 rupees and not at 6 rupees or 5 rupees, what these large government tenders are looking for, the business case should be very clear. But there sometimes we feel is the challenge is more on the financing side. So can you guys explain if there is something where you are trying to address that either by providing energy storage as a service or maybe working with certain financial institutions to make the credit available to customers and then provide some of the technology warranties or other things so that the bankers feel confident of lending out money? Because as soon as you switch it from a capex investment to a opex investment with a very clear saving, then I think the market can take off. So please share, if you can highlight your experience or your thoughts, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, why don't I jump in first? So I think, you highlighted already storage as a service, Rahul, and I think that's some model that a lot of people are looking into. The C&I market is potentially a very lucrative one, simply because, again, less regulatory hurdles, corporates can take decisions quickly, and there's corporate policies to reduce carbon emissions. So there's a drive internally, there's a drive to take on a little bit of cost now for future gain. And you're right, there's some paying very high tariffs. So there is a ability for having solar plus storage at a site and reducing the tariff you pay, but they may not someone take it as a lease payment or an expense rather than a full up capex. And so that's why we have seen storage as a service as a concept being approached in India. Maybe someone can talk more to an actual project that's being looked at. But around the globe, we have definitely seen that happen. And so Fluence does not take any projects on their balance sheet. But what was most important is the difficulty with the approach of storage as services, the risk of how much you can procure, how many people you contract with. So the one scenario we've seen really work well was someone who did solar leasing. They took the same contract, amended it for storage, warranties, degradation, which we provide. And then we helped them build that contract. And then they went out to the customers. As long as they found maybe one or two stone investors, they were willing to put in a sizable battery capex, which had the ability to expand as they found more and more customers. So we would size up the storage in the most efficient way to expand on a every 6 month or 1 year basis as they add more customers to the storage as a service. Of course, location makes a big difference and the capability of transmission. So as you mentioned in the last comment, an SEZ would be a good place to look at this, or anywhere where there's a large high density of manufacturing plants together would be a first place to look at these type of things. But that concept is actually a very viable one because obviously the cost makes sense, but you need that first mover who can go kind of what do you say, template the contract, which is to Indian norms and Indian corporate norms. And then secondly, they say, okay, I'm willing to take a shot on the first cornerstone investor with the know of upside in the future because I've already established myself. And I think that in India being enterprising as it is, there are a lot of people who are willing to do that. It's just that it's been successful in other countries. So I think we need to think about adopting it here.
Great. So we are trying to work with World Bank and AIIB, the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, to possibly create a $100 million sort of a fund to step of a concept. So again, if you have any projects or if you are interested in exploring such options, then again, as ISA, we'll be happy to work with all of you. I think we are just crossing the time limit, but I think all of you, if you have any final remarks or comments which you would like to share based on what you heard from other panelists, I would like to open it up. So maybe we can start with Anup, then go to Shaji and then Achal. So Anup, go ahead. Final remarks.
Yeah, we are in a very correct phase, I would say, in India, wherein we have everybody is aware of there is a need for a hybrid system. There's a need for using energy storage technology, whether it's a pump storage or the latest lithium-ion technology. And people are trying to relate to the successes or lesson learned from the rest of the world. And it's a very positive environment right now. The only thing is the government has to step in and provide some direction that instead of a RTC renewable energy, we should move towards finding where do you need energy storage, where do you need these things. It's not the whole 24 hours. What you need is in a pocket of dips where the energy is to be given. So you don't ramp up your thermal energy for a 5-minute duration or a 1-hour duration, rather than you use your batteries. And for peak applications, wherever you have more loads at substation level, then you use a battery system instead of expanding your transmission lines and more toward decentralization of this. This is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Shaji, final comments?
No, I think my views, I made it clear. I just wanted to have one question with Achal, if he can answer. Just wanted to know that apart from the battery price going down, where else the innovation is there, or which other part of the BESS system will help us bringing down the cost in a large way? The way we have seen solar project price coming down. What is your view, Achal, on this?
Yeah, so so one is applaud L&T for what they've done with their containers. I think that's one step most people are seeing. But the second thing we're seeing is on the other costs of commissioning, soft cost related. As you build up capacity in a country like India, let's say if we start building up that capacity as we push on projects, you will automatically see the price come down. You'll have more people capable of doing sizing of engineering, commissioning, installation. And if you have companies that can do that with more people, the price will automatically fall. So the whole system solution, as Rahul said, I think 30 to 40% is not the battery. So there's so many components there which will come down as you build up capacity. And that's why, back to my initial presentation, if we don't spearhead the industry, we're never going to get there. We're going to only rely on, okay, what's the lithium ion price? And that's not the correct way to go. It's very limited.
Yeah. Shaji, if I may add to what Achal said, I agree with what Achal said. But just other aspect which I'd like to mention is obviously it cannot help with the capex part, but in terms of the levelized cost, actually, how do you operate these assets has a huge role to play. And this is an area where companies like CS now have built capabilities over the last 10 years. And many of the companies, including Fluence and others, have that benefit of operating assets for close to 10 years and have developed certain capabilities to understand how you can get more value from the existing asset, because depending on how you manage the state of the charge, how do you manage the deep cycles or the higher C rates, how do you manage your temperature. So all these factors can have actually ultimately a huge impact on the levelized cost of energy from this project. So particularly when you are bidding for these large tenders, we see that those factors actually make a difference. Ultimately, many of the EPC companies or project developers, ultimately they are buying batteries from similar companies, or there is not a huge difference in terms of the prices of the cells what they are getting. But we still see a significant more than 10%, 15% difference in the bids which are submitted by different project developers. And the way we see it is, in some cases, some developers are very aggressive and probably they just want a project and win it at any cost. But most of the smart companies who are building long-term capabilities, they have found out how to optimize these assets. And that's where actually you can get 10, 15% optimization on levelized cost.
Right.
Achal, do you agree? Or?
I completely agree. Now we're getting into a conversation and the time's up. But
Yes.
there are two aspects on that, right? One is the levelized cost, and also what you said, like warranties and people who know how to size, be it the HVAC or the cooling requirement, or how you will do the cycling and what limitations on cycling. You see another side of the component. You see the investor, if they say I needed 9% return, they'll be like, oh, because you're providing all these warranties and guarantees, I only need 8% because their investment committee is more comfortable. And that automatically reduces the cost that they can bid. And so that's another aspect we've seen that on the buyer side has made a difference. Just one final thing is to Rahul's point, if you can we're talking about hybrids here that are doing shifting of power or maybe smoothing, but if they could do any other value application, be it frequency down the road, regulation, or being a reserve capacity in emergency, that could add a cost element which would make the effective cost go down. So not just the cost of the battery, but the value of the battery.
Another, just one minute I will take. Another factor which we are seeing in Europe, which is very different, is something like instead of a 5 to 7 year financing period, we are trying to have a long term of 20, 25 years. So you have 20 years to pay your interest, correct? So the whole financing game changes by 3 times. So this is another way in which we have to promote that this is a very safe technology. It's proven so that people are able to do long-term financing like coal-fired or other thermal power plants. So this is another one which we are trying to do. There's one of the project we are successful as owner's engineer and financing. So we also provide consultancy on how to structure it together along with the insurance so that we get longer duration of the project. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Anup, Achal and Shaji. It was a pleasure to have you as part of the panelists, and I'm pretty sure all the audience members have learned a lot from your experience. I'm sure they will also reach out to you one-on-one for follow-ups. So I'll hand it back to Amit and thank again Informa Markets and REI for choosing to partner with us for hosting this very important topic, which is very close to, I think, heart for all of us. But it's good to see the growing interest from the audience and policymakers. So thank you, Amit, for your support in this.
Thank you so much, Rahul. In fact, the whole session has been summed up very well, and it has been very interesting and very knowledgeable for the attendees and for all of us as well. This is the next gen which you guys have spoken about. And I think, yes, everybody is waiting for the government directives, and they have to be, we're all looking forward to it, that, that the government supports us in the best manner possible. Thank you once again for your time and, for associating with us. Rather, we should be thankful that, you guys have associated with us, and we definitely look forward to have you guys again. So, Dr. Rahul Walwalkar, thank you so much. Shaji, please, thank you so much for your time. Achal, thank you. And Anupji, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amit.
Thank you so much.
Rahul.
Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, hope to see you again, all of you, on 22nd September for the World Energy Storage Day.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely. Definitely. Thank you. Bye.